it's going to take a mental toll on you, and it probably already has been taking a mental toll on you. So let's think of something different. Let's try something different, because what you're doing, it hasn't been working. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Unchoreographed Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Jenna Lower, and today we're going to have a bit of a tough love conversation, because my guess is you are measuring your recovery right now for your hip impingement, your labral tears, whatever, by pain relief. And I'm going to tell you that's exactly why you are thinking about quitting. The truth is, this is a conversation that I have with almost every single client at a certain point in their rehab process. And it's a really important conversation worth having with you guys, because I think most people, it's natural to measure to use pain as your metric of, am I getting better? Is this working? But the reality is that's honestly one of the most dangerous metrics that you can use, because there's so many variables that go into it. And it's just not the indicator of if things are actually getting better sometimes. So what typically happens is people come in and they initially are having a lot of pain. They feel like, I don't know what my pattern is. I don't know what's causing my pain. It feels very random. It feels very all over the place. Everything hurts, right? And so we start doing some different things, maybe some exercise, some manual therapy, whatever it is, and they start to see a change in their pain. The important thing to remember is that these are temporary changes in the beginning. Maybe some soft tissue work or something that gives a quick, instant relief, but nothing's actually changed or happened in your body to make that stick yet. But nonetheless, there is a pain relief that happens. So then you start going back to doing whatever it is that you were doing that caused the pain in the first place. Maybe it was a certain activity, maybe it was the way that you were moving, whatever, and suddenly the pain comes back. And sometimes it comes back worse than it was before. Sometimes it just feels like it's a little bit worse because you finally got a moment of pain relief, but nonetheless, the pain comes back. And so what do people do? You shut down. And I would argue that this moment, this point right here, is probably one of the most dangerous spots in your recovery, not because the pain came back, but because of what you do next. Because the reality is, this moment right here, this is where most people quit. It's where they throw in the towel and they say, this didn't work, I'm done. Nothing is working, I'm hopeless. So if you are on the edge of that decision right now, and I hope you're not, but if you are, this episode today is for you. So like I said, I think without a doubt that it's probably a bit controversial and it's probably not something you've heard before, but I do really think that pain is probably the worst metric that you can use to try to track your progress. It's one metric, and I think that's often, even in physical therapy, sometimes I think we put too much of a big emphasis on what's your pain level today. What's the first thing that you hear when you walk in the door? How's your pain? And I, even myself lately, have recognized that that's a big problem. And so even for me, I've really shifted what I ask my clients, like not what's your pain, but how did the week go? What feels better? What feels worse? Versus give me a number for your pain. Honestly, most people hate that question anyways, because they're like, I don't know how to give it a number. Well, then let's not give it a number. Let's figure out what feels better and what feels worse. Because the reality is that is a much better metric than what your pain number is anyways. That is such a small piece of the puzzle, right? I think most of the time people, they get to that point where they're like, my pain is at a 6 or whatever, and this is when they want to throw in the towel. This is when they want to start canceling appointments and not coming and not doing anymore because they just feel like it's not working. But the reality is, if you are still feeling pain or limitation with doing something, that's all the more reason to keep going. Don't give up just because the pain is still there. Keep pushing forward to get yourself out of the pain. Keep looking for answers. Keep asking for better, Keep trying to understand what's happening in your body. Don't throw in the towel. the reality and setting expectations of what you're going to experience when you go into physical therapy or any sort of program for impingement or labral tears, the reality is at the beginning of it is a pretty slow process. The first 4 to 6 weeks, I would say, are really just you figuring things out. It's you're figuring out your body. What triggers my symptoms? What makes it feel better? What exercises feel best to me? What can I do that's within my threshold of, keeping it at a low level of discomfort? Like, what's my threshold for that? And sometimes we have to find, that was the threshold and I went a little bit over it and now I'm in a little bit more pain or I'm a little bit more flared up. But that all has to take place in the first 4 to 6 weeks. And I think not setting that expectation that pain is going to be all over the place is a really damaging idea, because it is going to be all over the place. That is a really normal thing to experience. And it doesn't mean that anything's wrong. In fact, it just means that you're doing exactly what you should be doing. You're working through the process of figuring out and understanding your body to try to make it better. And you have to go through that process. You can't skip that piece as much as we want to. And I know that you want to. That's why you want to keep giving up, right? I know that you just don't want to do it. But the reality is, if you don't go through that, you're not going to be able to come out on the other side. Everybody has to go through that. And so if we are only paying attention to what's my pain number, you're going to get so caught up in that when it goes up and down, up and down, up and down, it's going to take a mental toll on you. And it probably already has been taking a mental toll on you. So let's think of something different. Let's try something different, because what you're doing, it hasn't been working. You're not feeling better, and you're probably feeling more hopeless and discouraged than you started. So let's try something different. Let's not look at pain as the metric. Let's figure out a different metric that maybe would help you track your progress a little bit better and also make it feel a little bit less overwhelming to you. I think pain itself, the reality of that is that it's sort of a lagging indicator. It doesn't always tell you, what the work that you've put in, because you may have already put in a lot of work, but that number is still reading a little bit high. And that doesn't mean that what you're doing hasn't been working. It just means that your body hasn't had a chance to catch up. It maybe hasn't had a chance to change its movement patterns yet. It hasn't had a chance to actually make a change in strength or in mobility or in what your nervous system is doing. And so until those things catch up, your pain level may not actually change. And the reality is too that there's just so many things that go into pain level. It's not just a measure of, is there inflammation, right? It's, how's my stress level? What was my sleep like? What was my nutrition like? What did I do today? What did I do yesterday? What has the buildup from the past week been like? All of those things go into pain. There's so many avenues of pain. And so we just look at it as pain is a number, but it's not. Pain indicates so many other things. And so sometimes the number lags in catching up. Your body has to make changes before the actual pain and the response and the input that you feel are any different. And so again, using that as your metric is not the smartest decision all the time. So what do you use if pain is not the metric? What else do we need to think about? Well, I think what I try to frame it as, what is getting better? What is working? What can you maybe do now that you couldn't do 4 weeks ago that feels a little bit smoother or easier? Can you sit a little longer than you could last time? I had a patient recently that told me, you know what? I still have pain every single time I walk and every single time I take a step, but I took a car ride for 2 hours and I didn't think anything of it. I got up and walked, and yeah, there was still pain when I walked, but it was no different. And previously, a car ride for 2 hours would have set me off for weeks, and I just didn't think anything of it. That is huge. That piece of information, that progress that she made, we don't want to throw that to the side just because her pain was still a 6 when she walked. what we need to focus on is you just took a car ride for 2 hours and it didn't hurt. That is a huge measure of progress. So what are the things that you could do now that you couldn't do a week ago, 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, that you don't think about anymore, or that just even, just feel a little bit smoother or easier than they did before? Maybe it's sleeping. Maybe you can sleep through the night a little bit easier. Maybe you can sit at work for a little bit longer. Maybe you can't run 3 miles, but you can run 1 mile and it feels fine. Focus on those things. Any of those little baby steps, and they are baby steps, those are big deals. So like when somebody comes in here, we celebrate every single little win. And I think you probably need somebody to celebrate those little wins with you, because chances are if you're sitting here listening to this podcast, you've never had somebody to celebrate those little wins with. But those little wins are actually really big wins. But in our minds, our mind is programmed to just feel pain and to interpret the pain. So what happens is we want to feel, okay, pain, no pain. Like those are the two things, the two thresholds. That's not reality. Reality is pain is going to go from, a 5 to a 4.8 to a 4.2. And then maybe it drops down to a 3.5, 3.1. Like it's going to keep moving little step at a time until it's finally gone. Our body isn't recognized to pick up on those little patterns. And sometimes our expectation hasn't been set to pick up on those little changes. But those little changes, they start to snowball. They start to compound. And that's where the big changes then happen. So celebrate those little wins. Pay attention to those little things because they're bigger than you realize. But if you're only paying attention to what is the number of my pain, you miss all those little really, really good things that happen. Sometimes within that, there's also some not so great things that happen. Sometimes your pain bounces back up. Sometimes you do something and it hurts a little bit more than you expected, or it sets you into a flare. This is also data that we want to know, and it's really important data. Does it mean that you've gone backwards? No. What it tells us is your body's trying to say something to you. You just need to know, how do I listen and how do I respond to get it back on the right path? And again, I teach my clients, focus on trends, not so much the little nuances day to day of every little activity that you do. It's good to be aware of them, but I want you to pay attention to the trend. What happens over the course of a couple days, a week? Is the trend moving in the right direction, or is it still feeling like it's going the wrong way? That's going to be more indicative, because the reality is any rehab, whether it's for hip issues or not, is very much up and down, up and down. And so you can get really bogged down by that, and really it can mentally take a toll on you. So focus on the trend. Again, pain number is one of those things that goes into trend, but it's not the only thing, which right now, that is probably the only thing that you're paying attention to. So I just want you to realize that there's other things to look at, and to try to maybe encourage you to switch the metric that you are actually putting so much stock into. So I think, again, I kind of already mentioned this, but the way that I set up expectations for my clients when I work with them is that the first 4 to 6 weeks of the process are probably going to be the hardest. They're going to be the slowest. They're going to feel a little bit like they take a toll on you, and that's normal. And I think even just setting that expectation to expect that is really important, and it's something a lot of therapists don't do with their clients. And that's also why when you feel like something goes wrong or you have a little bit of a setback, your brain immediately goes to, this isn't working. And when you hit week 4, if nobody's ever taught you, hey, this is normal, and they've reassured you every time you've had some moments that weren't so great, but they've reassured you that, hey, you're doing the right thing, look at all the progress you have made. By the time you hit week 4 and week 6, if you still are feeling a certain pain level or you're struggling in a certain way, this is when the appointments start getting canceled. And I see it every single day. Even when we put these expectations in place, I still see it happen. And it's just hard, right? It's hard for you to wrap your mind around, I've been doing this for 4 weeks. Why am I still in pain? But when we can make that shift from the number of pain to, but look at all these other things that you could do now that you couldn't do before, things start to change in your brain. And what I usually tell my clients is, when you hit that wall, you are going to hit that wall. Usually around week 4 to 6, you are going to hit a wall and you're going to think, I'm done. I am throwing in the towel. This is not working. I don't want to keep going. And I tell them this is going to happen because what they need to do is push through that wall, push through, because I promise you, right on the other side of it is progress and relief and doing the thing that you thought you would never do again. It is right on the other side and it is right in your grasp. But the biggest danger is that people stop when they hit the wall. And I get it. Why wouldn't you want to, right? It's frustrating. You've been through, at this point, maybe not weeks of pain, but years of pain. But the reality is that this wall that you're going to hit, it's just part of the process. And it actually means that you're putting in the work and good things are happening and you're doing the right thing. Keep going through that wall. Nothing that is easy is worthwhile, right? Hard things, good things come out of hard things. Good things come out of a challenge. This is no different. Think of it that way. And I don't want to set up the expectation that it's not going to be hard, because it is going to be hard. It's going to take a lot of work. The people who succeed, though, are the ones that are willing to do the work even when it's hard. This is like life lessons too, right? Like not even just rehab lessons, but life lessons. The people who succeed are the ones who are willing to do the work even when it's hard and even when it doesn't feel like there's an out. Because I promise you, keep going. It is right on the other side of that. People are always surprised when that actually happens. Then they're like, oh my gosh, you were right. Well, yeah, I know. I've been doing this for a while. I've seen hundreds of people go through the exact same process. And I know we all like to think that we're special and that we're different. But the reality is, yes, you're special. You are. But you're not that special. There are some really common patterns that we see when we're dealing with impingement and labral tears and all of these things, and this is one of them. And so it really is just the normal process. And keep going. I know it's going to be hard, but again, those first 4 to 6 weeks, part of the reason that it's so challenging and that it does feel so up and down is because we are having to make these constant little tweaks and readjustments. And I did this and it hurt a little bit more, so let me go back and try this other thing again. And now how does my body respond when I do that? Oh, it made it better. Okay, great. That's going to be a keeper. I need to put that in my playbook. So you're building this playbook, essentially, is what I call it. And again, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get to that point. What you have to do is you have to learn to listen to your body. You are essentially trying to figure out and understand your body at a deeper level than you ever have before. And that just takes time, and it takes tweaks, and it takes adjustments. So when you call in and you say, I'm going to cancel my appointment because it hurts, because I'm in pain, I did that exercise and it made it worse, and now I don't want to come in anymore because I need to rest and let it chill. No, don't do that, because that's information, that's data, and that tells us, okay, that one exercise that flared you up. That sucks. I know we don't love to have it happen, but don't not come, because what we need to do is we need to take that and we need to figure out, well, why did that flare you up? Was it how you moved? Was it just not the right exercise for you? Was it something else that was completely unrelated to that exercise that happened within your day that you didn't even realize? So don't cancel the appointment. Come to the appointment. Let's figure it out together. This is the period where you are building and you're understanding. And it, again, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. It takes time. Don't stop because the pain level is telling you something. Use the pain level as an excuse to dig deeper into what is my body telling me and what is happening. Because if you can do that, I promise you, there is no way that you will not make progress. I can 100% tell you that with certainty. So what is the biggest takeaway from today's podcast? I hope that you guys felt like this is a powerful episode, because I sure know that it is. This is, like I said in the very beginning, this is a conversation that comes up weekly with my clients. And I hope that it's just as powerful for you listening to it on a podcast than if we were sitting together in the same room and I'm telling you the exact same thing. But what would I want you to do? What I want you to take away, it would be to, again, don't give in when it starts to feel hard. Use that as an excuse to, and when I say push harder, I don't mean aggressively push through things that don't feel good, but to really dive deeper and understand what's happening in your body. Take the time, like use it as an excuse to put in the work. Make sure that there's a clear strategy attached to that. It shouldn't just be, I try this, I try that, like trying to like throw spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks. No, you need to be working with somebody who's walking you through a strategy behind how you actually do this and implement it. But don't cancel the appointment, because if you do, nobody can walk you through that strategy. And now you are left alone, which is probably exactly how you're feeling right now as you're listening to this podcast. So don't cancel the appointment. That is the number one thing that I would tell you. The other thing, maybe you're not in physical therapy and you're trying to piece through this yourself. So what I really want you to do is think back over the past 4 to 6 weeks and think about things that you can do now that maybe you couldn't do before. And it can be something small. It can be, I sat for 10 minutes instead of 5. I slept through half the night instead of not being able to fall asleep. I was able to run 3 miles, I was able to run 1 mile, but I still can't run 3 miles, right? Like maybe it's a small thing, or you feel like it's a small thing, but I can definitely assure you it's not as small as you think it is. But make a list of all those things, anything that has gotten even a little bit better. And I want you to pick a few of those things to be your metric for progress, not your pain number. Yes, you can track it, fine, whatever, that you can still pay attention, but don't make that the thing in your mind that tells you if you're getting better or not. Pick something else. Maybe it is, how long can I sit for at work? How long can I walk my dog for? Something completely unrelated. That's what I want you to focus on, not the number of your pain. Don't get caught up in that. And alongside that, even with that, I think it can be a slippery slope of now that becomes the metric that you're holding on to. So yes, I'm telling you to try to pick a different metric, but at the end of the day, it's usually more than one metric. It's a lot of little different things. So what I kind of encourage everybody to do is to build the playbook. Track your symptoms, track what makes it better, what makes it worse, what flares it, what works when it's flared to get you out of a flare. Track those things, keep the trends and understand what the trends are, because that is your playbook. That is now your deeper understanding of how your hip works and what your body is telling you. And this puts you in the driver's seat of your recovery and of your pain, not somebody else, not even having to go into a therapist to have the appointment for them to help, tell you what to do or to fix it. That's certainly a piece of the puzzle. Like obviously physical therapy is great. Like I do this with people all the time. But at the end of the day, I want to walk the patient through the process so that they feel confident doing it with or without me. I want you to understand your hip better than I do. I want you to understand your hip better than any, Joe Schmo physical therapist does, because you're really the only one that knows what works and what doesn't work for you. You just need a process and a strategy of how to track it and pay attention to it, and to stop only looking at a number as being the metric of if what you're doing is working or not. If you guys are like, I don't know where to start or how to do this, I am working on a brand new resource for you that will essentially help you build your playbook without needing me, without needing a physical therapist. But how can you do this process? Essentially, how do you walk through those first 4 to 6 weeks of therapy that are so challenging? How do you walk through that process yourself and figure it out? And yes, of course, do physical therapy alongside it and do all the exercises and this and that and whatever. But like, just at the very root, like how do we track these trends and how do you build this playbook? I want you to have those tools and those resources available to you, whether you are coming in to see me or another therapist in person or not. Everybody should have access to that information and to learning how to understand your hip. So if you guys are interested, all I want you to do is just email me the word playbook and I will send it to you and more. I'll send you all the information as soon as it's ready to launch. So again, I hope that today was a powerful episode for you. I hope that you bookmark this and listen to it again and again. When you hit that pit and you hit that wall and feeling like, I just don't know if there's a way through this, listen back to this, and I want you to remember that this is a normal part of the process. Get through those first 4 to 6 weeks that feel so challenging, put in the work, and it will get better on the other side. You just need to make sure that you have somebody that can guide you through that process. And so if that is me, if I can hold your hand and walk you step by step along your journey, I am more than happy to do it. So thank you guys so much for listening. I will see you back here next week on Unchoreographed, and go get to tracking. Bye, guys.